Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. If you want to take your shooting experience to the next level, then check out Coltac gear for 100% made in America products. Coltac manufactures specialty gear designed for long-range shooting, hunting, and other tactical applications. From their support bags, suppressor covers, shooting mats, and a whole lot more, Coltac is creating tough, durable, and innovative gear for both civilian and professional markets. Go to coltac.com to see all that they have to offer. That's cole-tac.com. If you are looking to get a new rifle or build your own, look no further than Kelbley's. Kelbley's actions and rifles have a higher level of accuracy and hold 92 world records set on either one of their rifles or rifle actions. Whether you're looking for an ultralight mountain rifle or wanting to compete in precision rifle shooting, Kelbley's has you covered. Go to kelbley.com to find out more or give them a call as their customer service is the best. That's KELBLY.com. Kelbley's. If you're looking to take your hunting to another level, there's no better way to do it than by subscribing to onX Hunt. If you want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, onX is the #1 GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust onX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. If you want to know more about onX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt or download their app today for a free trial. If you are wanting to become more accurate and deadly with your shooting, one of the best things you can do is upgrade your trigger with a Timney. Timney triggers are 100% made in America and have been since their founding, providing a crisp, reliable, and repeatable trigger break every time. I'll be shooting Timney triggers in my guns this year, and I hope you'll join me in shooting the world's finest trigger. Go to timneytriggers.com to get yours today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, live from Soul Seeker Studio here in the beautiful state of Texas. I am joined by the legend himself, and he might not call himself a legend, but when it comes to hunting, and not just hunting, but pure hunting, there's one man that stands out from the rest, and that is Willi Schmidt. He is an honorable human being, a great leader in the industry, a great voice for the industry, and a better human being all around. I'm honored to have him on the show. I can't believe after doing 300 and so odd episodes, this is the first time I've had Mr. Willi Schmidt joining me for a podcast tonight. Brother, thank you so much for hopping on the show and being part of this.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. I guess better late than never, right?
Yeah. Hey, you got to start sometime, right? Isn't that the whole idea? You know, they're analysis by paralysis or paralysis analysis, whatever direction that goes. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, brother. Well, I want to know a lot about you. So when I got into hunting, and I never had Outdoor Channel, Sportsman's Channel, but I would go to friends' houses and they would have these, and I'd turn them on and be like, oh man, I get to watch hunting. This is awesome. You know, before the days of like YouTube really kicking off, which doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but this is year 11 for me. Being a hunter since taking my hunter safety course. So You have 11 seasons that you filmed and recorded and you put out there. I want to hear from the get-go and all the way through. What is your origin story of hunting and how did it develop into what you ended up creating?
So, I was born and raised in Fort Collins, Colorado. My dad was a wildlife biologist. He was actually a professor at Colorado State University and was a diehard hunter. And so as early as I can remember, I just went with him in the field, started obviously with the warmer weather stuff like doves and a few waterfowl things before it got too cold. And I would just kind of be the bird dog and just love being with him. And then finally got my hunter safety. I'm guessing I was around 8 to 10, something like that, which in Colorado at that age, all you could do was small game. Mm-hmm. So I remember the first time I ever went out with my dad and was actually the hunter. I had a bolt action 410 shotgun, and it was my grandfather's. And so we went out, and from there I just started loving being with him. You couldn't I was talking to somebody the other day. I think in Colorado at the time when I was growing up, I don't think you could hunt big game till you were 14. It may have been 12, which is what it is now. So started with deer, and just my dad instilled that passion at a very early age, and it's taken some highs and lows like you. There was no YouTube, there was no hunting channel. I just read Outdoor Life and Field and Stream and a couple of the magazines that were out there, and just loved diving into them. And in fact, I remember the Outdoor Life, the This Happened to Me page. There was always a one deal, sort of a cartoon of somebody's story they sent in of what happened to them. And then, of course, go to college, and I didn't hunt as much, just a little bit here and there. Then got out of college, first job, started a family, and did what I could. Usually more waterfowl and small game because it was a morning or a weekend or just a full day instead of taking several days or a week off. And then finally was able to build up some vacation to where my biggest passion now is archery elk hunting. And I didn't go on my first archery elk hunt until I was post college, I think. Just timing and where my dad was going. And I didn't have a bunch of buddies. My dad was my hunting buddy, and all of his buddies. So, I was, teenager in college hunting with a bunch of guys my age now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the hunting channel started getting to be popular, and ESPN used to do it and a couple of other things, and started watching it. At that time, I was a banker in Colorado, commercial banker. And again, did it when I could, had younger kids, not little ones, but I'd say that time, they were 10 and 13, something like that. And our bank, we structured an acquisition for our bank to be acquired, obviously, by another bank. And after about a year, I was like, this isn't what I signed up for. And I didn't want to look back in 5 years and say, I wished I'd have left. I had no plan. I just knew that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I left. And as I was informing all of my customers I was leaving, one of my customers was Orion Multimedia. That was a huge outdoor production company, actually based in Littleton, Colorado. And they were a banking customer of mine. So when I was informing them all I was leaving, they were asked, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to decompress for a little bit. It was a rough 2 or 3 years structuring all of that. It took a mental toll.
Yeah.
But they said, do you ever have an interest of, filming outdoor television? And I said, look, I love to hunt. I love to watch it, but I can't tell you yes or no till I try it. So I did. And they actually made me a co-host of Whitetail Revolution at the time. I did an episode of Turkey Revolution, did an episode of an elk hunt. Waterfowler's Edge was a show that they produced. And then after doing that for about 3 years, 3 guys within Orion left to start their own production company. And like anybody starting out, you immediately are like, we need projects, we need customers, whatever. Yep. And they said, you have an interest in having your own show? Well, that was something I'd never thought of. And I thought, well, I've enjoyed what I've been doing. So sure. Well, that learning curve went from this to like this, because even doing the sort of paid, and I use that term very loosely because you didn't get paid a lot. It was some clothing and some gear and whatever, and a small stipend to go on some of the hunts with them. I didn't deal with storyline. I didn't hire videographers. I didn't deal with partners. I didn't deal with the network or anything. But I said, sure. Let's give it a whirl. I loved watching it. And, at the time the quality of production wasn't great. The storylines weren't great. It was kind of I hate to say cookie cutter television show. Somebody shows up at such and such a lodge or such a hunt. That's when the hunt started, and it went through with either a kill or no kill, and that was it. But there really wasn't a backstory. There were some hosts that were consistent. There were a lot of guest hosts, so you never built any continuity with whoever was working on the show. And so this production company, felt that quality of production, telling the whole story and building some consistency with the host was what was needed. And that was about the time, Jason Matzinger had been doing it for a little while. He's a great storyteller, cinematographer. Western Hunter started at about that same time. And some of those better quality productions, it just seemed to be a time like 2010 when people wanted to see a change. And I thought, if I could last 4 years, it would be a great run. And god dang, 11 years later, and I think it was 2022, I just decided to hang it up. And everybody says, well, why'd you quit? And, I don't have really an elevator speech, but especially with what's going on now, I have a lot of friends in the industry. And, first 2 years post COVID, a lot of the outdoor companies did really, really well. Everybody just wanted to get outside and they were selling. Well, we've softened a bunch since then. So a lot of my friends are actually having sponsors cut back on their partnership dollars, and it's harder to get partnerships. So some of it was just kind of fortuitous. I felt, how many more stories can I tell after 11 years? I've got 118 episodes. I wanted to kind of keep it fresh. It's also turning into not just a television show, but you do a lot more on digital and social, and partners were asking for more for the same dollars or even less. And, don't misunderstand me. I'm not afraid of hard work, but when you're doing the same amount of work or more for the same amount of dollars or less, combined with the other things, like I said, of telling new stories and everything else, I was like, I'd rather do it and stop it on my terms rather than having a big partner say, we're cutting back, we're getting out of TV, and then kind of being forced that way. And I had a lot of good long-term relationships. I didn't feel like I wanted to go and try to find somebody else to replace them. So timing was good. And as you said, I haven't left the industry. I'm still, filming, albeit less filming on the hunts, doing some short films, and want to stay, I've used the term relevant. It's not an ego thing to be relevant, but I have met some of the best people, best friends, other than long time, high school and before friends that I'm still in touch with, but great salt of the earth people. I do a lot of hunts with them, and they're great people. I just want to stay involved in the industry. So that sort of helps keep me there.
Yeah. Yeah. You made it so far into it, you don't want to just give it up and sacrifice the
Right.
relationships, all that. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Your story is really fascinating, and I want to dive more into this whole concept of outdoor media, because there's a good and a bad side to outdoor media. If you pay attention to, uh, all the listeners follow along, there are certain groups that just rip on hunting, quote unquote, influencers. Or I always use the term ambassadors, because everybody is a hunter is an ambassador for hunting. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, people are always watching us. Eyes are always upon us. They're constantly waiting for us to mess up, screw up. Look at them. See. Well, ultimately, we're all ambassadors. This idea, though, is how do we promote something that we love to engage with people so that makes them also want to enjoy it? Uh, and then there's this talk of, well, promoting it is diluting it. I personally think that the promotion of social media, hunting media, outdoor, is anyone who's against it, like truly against it, is of a scarcity mindset where, ah, I I want to still make sure I have my time, I have my animals, my space, my place, rather than there is enough, and there is enough for everyone. And if there are more people involved, competition breeds success, right? And there's no better way to hold yourself accountable to become a better hunter than when you have to compete more against other people that are doing it. Um, Going back to the hunting media, because we'll dive into the pros and cons of that. What was the big shift that you like experienced when it came to storytelling around the hunt, rather than it just being like, "Hey, we're here. This is what we're gonna hunt. Hopefully, we shoot something. Bam," and that was it.
Oh, I mean, a lot of it really was the production company. And it was sometimes you don't even know what questions to ask. Like I said, I didn't do a lot with the videographers, the storytellers, the network partners, anything like that. So it wasn't until starting out where they were bringing up a lot of things to my attention, which maybe I just didn't really pay attention to, of how it was going. So, really trying to tell, like, sort of, who are you? Why do we care? And why are you here? What's important about it?
Mm-hmm.
And even for those 11 years, I mean, it's always dynamic and you're switching and you're trying to change things up. I look at some early episodes with the open, what that was kind of the time when Train to Hunt and Cam Hanes were really taking off, and it was kind of that hardcore physical backcountry 5 days with everything, 7 days with everything on your back, and we fitness has always been important to me, so we tried to portray that a little bit more, and then realized after a little while it doesn't need to be that way. You're never going to appease everybody. You're never going to
Right.
get everybody on board, and I'll diverge a little bit that this may come into that whole social media, and I call them keyboard cowboys and the people who like to criticize. Um, I guess I've always kind of been a pleaser, and so when I started getting criticism for things,
Yeah.
I had to get some thick skin and some broader shoulders pretty damn quick. And if my wife was sitting here, she's like, I couldn't watch it. She'd sit there and she'd want to get in an online fight with them because these people are just spewing whatever they want to spew.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the downside to a lot of that is, it's just opened up an avenue, not just in hunting, but everything where people think they have a voice, which is great. We do, but it's easy to tap away on a keyboard, hit send, and then just feel like, okay, I said my piece, and nobody really realizes what kind of effect that's having on somebody. And is it really warranted,
Hmm.
Um, and one thing that I've always tried to do, it took me a lot of years, well over half the 11 years, to kind of come up with, what if there was a quick blurb or an elevator speech of what pure hunting means. I've kind of narrowed it down to one word, which was authenticity, which is what I tried to do. And I showed everything as it happened. I mean, if there was a bad shot, that happens. I would show it, you know. Everything that happened in the hunt, trying to tell the whole story. I never burned any footage. I never acted like something didn't happen. Missing something, missing an animal. We through 118 episodes, there'd be an occasion where we would wound something, and good lord, the people who would fire off and criticize you and not take that shot. I took a frontal shot on an elk one time, first and only time I've ever done it. Never recovered the animal. That one was rampant with people talking about the shot. But there's also people who I know wait for that shot and take it, and it can be very lethal. And sometimes, a good friend of mine, Dan Staten, you probably know him. Bow hunting is not perfect. I shot a bear with him, and I thought he was quartering too. He actually was sort of quartering a little more away, so I didn't get both lungs. And he said, "Bow hunting's not perfect. The minute that bow leaves your arrow, the arrow leaves your bow. Um, a lot can happen. Some of it's out of your control." But I never shied away from showing it, and just some of the criticisms, and I've just said, look, you're either lying or you haven't hunted long enough if it hasn't happened to you, because it is going to happen.
Yeah.
And somebody spouting off and saying it hasn't, I'm not going to challenge them or ask. That's fine. If that's what you want to feel and you want to beat me up for it, so be it. I'm more proud of showing it and showing my mistakes, and that can happen, than trying to hide it and act like every time I take a shot it's a perfect shot. I mean, I practice hard, I do everything, but that's where I think some of the digital social, putting your stuff out there, just it um can cause animosity, it can cause undue criticism. Keyboard cowboys come out there and just like to say their piece. I respond to every single one of them, and a lot of them respond back and are appreciative, and it starts some good dialogue, which I think you certainly would appreciate. I'm trying to be a good ambassador and show what happens.
Yeah.
People just go crickets. They said what they want to say, and they move on, which is fine.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So a little history on me, Willie, is right now I am currently a school teacher in a discipline campus. So in the state of Texas, if you get in trouble with the law or you get caught with uh, drugs or nicotine or whatever, things that you're not supposed to have at school or do in the community, you get sent to my school for placement. We got a metal detector, no windows, kids wear uniforms, teachers rotate classrooms,
Okay.
students stay in their desk. And a part of that is we always teach life skills, right? And life skills, and I'm also a social studies teacher, so I'm a huge proponent of knowing your rights and knowing the power of it. Well, freedom of speech is the very First Amendment, right? Like it's the number one to the Bill of Rights. A lot of people will say, "Yeah, we need freedom of speech," and want to defend their speech. And at the same time, we need to also understand that when we say freedom of speech, it means defending so that the other person can also speak and share their voice, their opinion. And it doesn't always mean you're gonna like it. And I agree where, authenticity is the best thing that you can do. I had a conversation with Jason Matzinger at Western Hunt Expo a few years ago when he was talking about he has some of the most epic footage that he had of, I believe, some mule deer, um, but he can't release it because of how it would be viewed from the public or anti-hunters or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, okay, but if you're a storyteller, isn't the whole idea for us to be able to communicate our story or the story, the narrative, to go along with what you're showing? And we ended up agreeing to disagree, or just ended up just not getting anywhere. So conversation moved elsewhere. But it brings me to this point, and I've never actually had this idea until just now because of the conversations you and I are having. Driver's license. In order to drive a car, you need to take a driver's ed course and you need to get a license. Whether that's right or wrong or against freedom or not freedom, or, I'm not saying I'm for or against, I'm just posing out some questions. We're having a talk. Do you think with the access to cameras, everyone has cameras now, cameras in the pocket, right? Your math teacher, your algebra teacher back in middle school, ninth grade, you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket everywhere you go. Well, yeah, well, we sure do
Yeah,
nowadays.
you do.
So, but with that comes a camera. Should there be some sort of responsibility to understanding what goes along with filming outdoor content when you release it?
That's an interesting question. That's presuming you are going to release it. I don't know. I don't. You couldn't get anywhere to where there's a license or requirement or some class that you take to have to do it. But I don't know. Maybe that's more just something under life skills, whether it's parent or somebody else who teaches you. That everything has a responsibility, and you should know. I mean, I remember outdoor ed, right? It's what are your ethics? It's what you do when nobody's watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and now you kind of feel like everybody's watching because everybody does have a camera, so you got to watch your p's and q's. But I think there are some people who, but it's just like everything. If you pass laws for all the people who abuse it, there are people who abuse it and don't pay attention to it. We would lose all of our freedoms. You just kind of need to figure that there's going to be people who act unethically or do things that don't make sense. I mean, I won't throw anybody, under the bus, but you go back to Bomars, right? They did everything with their spearing the bear. That was legal with where they were and stuff like that. But there's also a taste factor,
Mm.
and I never saw it. It was edited by that time, but good Lord, you talk about the backlash that they had from something. They filmed it, they put it out there. Knowingly, it was some shock value and that type of thing. And the people I talked to who did see it after we discussed it, I wouldn't have put it out there, and maybe that's where you and Jason disagreed with whatever the footage of the mule deer footage he had. He just didn't feel maybe it was tasteful,
Mhm.
even though it could have been a story and everything else behind it. So there is a responsibility that goes with having a camera, filming it, and then deciding to put it out there. It's one thing to show your buddies, in a bar and your house or whatever, gathering around, take a look at this, but putting it out there for public consumption, I don't know. You do need to think about it and think what the ramifications and consequences would be.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It almost seems like a lose-lose situation, right?
Yeah.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, you want to film it, you want to have that. Maybe you want to start a YouTube channel, maybe you don't. But it's like, are we thick-skinned enough? Is everyone else thick-skinned enough? It seems like, yeah, to use the term snowflake, like everyone's so sensitive, like, ooh, ow, that hurt. That, ooh, I don't know, I don't like that. Rather than everyone stay in your lane, live your life, support wildlife, support wild things, wild places, and follow the rules. And if you don't like the rules, learn how to engage with your legislation to change the rules.
Makes sense. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
less is more kind of guy though. Like I'm not full libertarian at all, but I like, I explain to my students freedom of speech, the whole idea of like, you can say whatever you want to me, but we have life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and it's like a track, and everyone's going in the same direction. Stay in your lane, no problems. The minute we get out of our lane and we start bumping into other people, that's when problems happen. And it all just comes down to loving people, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated. Love yourself. Love
Sure.
others.
And sometimes it's the way things are said. It's not necessarily what's said, it's how it's said, and tactfully, and a good way to spur dialogue rather than just being critical and pointing the finger and calling somebody a name.
Yeah. Sam Singleton, the fourth, right here. Every hunt is a learning opportunity. What do you think about that as something that do you have to share the narrative? Do you have to dialogue something if you're going to share something that's not a positive outcome as viewed through like a clean hunt per se? And that term is, like,
Yeah. No, first of all, I agree with Sam's comment. I mean, you sort of, on when we talked on Monday, you made a comment which was funny. I didn't take it away. I'm 56. All right, so I'm you like to poke fun, right? A little more. I got more salt here than you've got there. Yeah. Um,
oh,
but no, I mean, you're constantly learning, and I hear some people talking, and they act like they've been there, done that, and on tons of success. But just when you think you have, whether it's an animal or something figured out, they'll surprise you.
mhm.
And so yeah, I agree with him. You are always learning. What was your question? I got a little deviated off, diverged.
Oh, like sharing everything,
Oh yeah,
having
yeah.
to have the
I,
narrative if you're going to
Yeah,
share it.
I mean, I think so. One of the criticisms is, when we haven't found something, one of the things that people say is, "Oh, you look long enough. You didn't do this." Well, if I filmed and had 2 days worth of filming where we grid searched and blood tracked and did everything else, I mean, all you can do is say you looked for 2 days. I mean, nobody's going to watch that.
Right.
So you can narrate, you can try to tell as much of the story as possible. Um, but whether it's short film content, on the network, you're restricted to 22 minutes to make a 30-minute show with commercials and everything. I mean, how much can you do with trying to build up to the hunt, what happened, and then it didn't happen. I misjudged the distance on an elk in Montana. I don't know. It's been now 6-7 years ago, something like that. Hit him low, and then showed a little searching. But I wasn't gonna have a camera guy follow me for 2 days doing that, and wrapped up with some narrative. I looked for this bull, and I had a couple of people say, you didn't look long enough, you didn't do this. Well, how do they know they weren't there? I'm not going to show 2 days solid. I'm not going to run a time lapse of those two. So yeah, I have tried to do it because I do think it's important, because I don't want to come across as lackadaisical or what. Didn't hit that one right, going to move on, whatever, head on to the next deal, because that's not it at all. It ruins me. I mean, you always want, when you make a great shot on an animal, and most of this is archery, but even sometimes rifle, but when you make a great shot, you never go back and say, how did that, everything felt perfect. I hit my anchor point. I did this, I held. You're stoked. But when it doesn't go right, you're constantly like, well, did the animal move? Did I do this? What happened? How'd this happen? And you beat yourself up. So nobody will ever be harder on me than me. And so, yeah, to your question, I think you do need to, but I don't think you'll ever be able to tell it enough unless you're one-on-one with somebody to talk to them about it,
Yeah.
to really probably do it justice.
Yeah. To make eye contact and be like, hear me, like
Right.
the sincere. Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. I agree. With all your hunting experience that you've done over the years, what has hunting done for you as a human being?
Whew. God, that's loaded. I mean, it's such a passion of mine. First of all, turning it into a career, if you will, it did not diminish my passion. They say if you make your hobby your job, you lose it, and you stop liking it as much. That never happened. I hunt just as much, and my passion is still there. I loved telling the story. I love being behind the camera as much as in front of the camera. I just enjoy doing that. But I think it's made me a better husband, a better father, because I'm more present when I'm around, because it did entail some traveling. I do really, I don't think about a shot or an opportunity more thoroughly or overanalyze it in the heat of the moment because I'm wondering what might happen. I just think you need to be instinctual, and what's going to happen is going to happen, and then deal with it after the fact.
Hmm.
But it's made me. It's his. I was always very ethical. I mean, my handshake, my word, everything's all I've got, right? So I try to do everything as out front positively as possible. But it's made me be that much, I guess, maybe hyper aware of all of that to just say I've got to do the best job that I can. I mean, because I am representing something that's very important to me and lots of other people. I want to do it the right way.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a fascinating thing. When I got into hunting, well, first off, let me just say that I grew up in a household that wasn't the best. From the outside, it looked really good. From the inside, very turmoil, a lot of shakeup, and developed a lack of voice, a lack of identity, lack of courage. I was very cowardly. And a lot of people don't like actually saying that word or using that word like, oh, you know, I wasn't the most courageous, but I wasn't a coward. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, like I ended up learning as an adult, like I never spoke up the way I wanted to. I never stood up the way I wanted to. And ultimately, what hunting did for me was number one, when I chose to hunt, because no one ever taught me how, it was something
Right.
I chose into. It was me choosing myself. Like, no, I'm following my own path. But number two, it it had me challenge my fears of not being good enough, my fears of not being able to be a provider or being able to rely on my own skill set, my own knowledge. Everyone always says trust your gut, right? Or trust your
Right.
instincts, but the instincts come from the gut, right? So how many people have a hard time trusting themselves? And that is something that hunting taught me is that you need to slow down, be quiet, and start listening to yourself through the pursuit of listening to nature and everything that's around you. And for us to be able to articulate the power, the transformational power that hunting holds is where we can make this emotional impact and connect with the non-hunters, the anti-hunters, the hunters, but they don't know how to communicate why hunting is so powerful for them. And I love you and your stance of pure hunting and talking about authenticity because that is your story to share about, you know, hunting holds me accountable to be more authentic, especially when I'm filming my content to share it with the world.
Yeah. Well, well put. I think so. Yeah.
I love it. I'm going
Yeah.
to scroll here. We got a couple
Okay.
of comments. Two awesome guys. Keep up the good work, fellas. Luke Washington. Luke, you're a savage. I got to make sure I stay up to date on these chats. Well, Willie, when did you move to Montana?
2018.
Was it the best decision of your life?
Certainly right up there.
Yeah.
Recently, yeah, and especially the timing. I mean, that was just lucky, right? Look what happened 2 years later, and everything else, and how the Front Range of Colorado's changed dramatically. We didn't see what was coming, but we've absolutely loved it. No regrets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So since you are in the state of Montana, Montana, you for a long time was always looked upon as like this great hunting destination and a safe place to go. But it seems as of late there's a lot of political pressure on hunting in the state of Montana. Um, whether it's from out of staters or you know, I'm pretty sure Montana's on the corner crossing list that just came out as one of the states that I mean, there's so many different things where it used to be, to go to Montana, get a second tag or, all
Yep.
this. And do you ever feel like living in a place where hunting is good, that it gets overwhelmed from out of staters?
Oh, yeah. That's no question that happens, and it is happening. I mean, and I don't envy the commissioners in any state trying to pass the wildlife laws, and including Montana. I mean, you talk about hunting being polarizing, but when people start talking about the way they're state commissioners manage their wildlife, that's about as diverse as you can get. And everybody who is in there is a hunter and has all kinds of different views. But it's happened in the relatively short time we've been here. I had hunted Montana. I hunted elk in Montana a couple times as a non-resident, in the Missouri break. So it wasn't a general tag. It took a couple years each time to get enough points to draw it. But there's some stuff going on right now that I mean, the resident population, the population of Montana has grown enough to where the laws that were once passed, where you were guaranteed a tag, especially as your first choice as a resident, are not there anymore. Um, just and that's within the residents, and it used to be guys would just head up here, and I'm looking outside to the Bridgers, right here against Bozeman. A lot of locals would go up there for bears and a day hunt, and it's just not the same. It's just getting overpopulated with all the people who've moved here because that's close. It's easy. You can never say no grizzly bears, but it's not like it is south of here, and some other things. And eastern Montana with deer. There's I caught a blurb and was looking at it. I can't remember what House bill it is that's being introduced, where they're trying to limit the non-resident deer hunters out in the eastern part of the state, because you do go out there, and I've done it a couple of times with a couple friends, Matt Singer being one, and I'll bet you it's probably at least 50% of out of state. Montana and Minnesota are the two biggest out of state license plates that you see driving around. So it does. Colorado was always that way, right? It had the biggest elk herd and over the counter tags, and you just see it out. It's great for the economy. So I mean, people look at it as a negative when it affects you and your ability for your old stomping grounds to hunt, and seeing a few more out of staters and stuff. But your state benefits from license sales and everything else. And if we had 100,000 watchers here, they'd be blowing up. And I mean, it's such a polarizing comment of people not liking the way it's managed. It's a tough deal. And after COVID, so many people started hunting locally in the States, and non-hunters or people who weren't hunters became hunters because they wanted to experience it and, get their own food supply and everything else. So there's just been a whole bunch of things that have driven people to be in the woods, and the states that it was always almost a guaranteed extra tag, second tag, whatever. It's gotten a lot tougher.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, so I got into the game later, and so
Right.
my points that I've built up in different states isn't that high, and that was one of my biggest frustrations, is how different states do points or draws. And like, okay, if bought my very first point for a special tag at age 33, how many years is it going to take before I get enough points to actually draw something? And then, with that being said, at what age am I going to be by the time, in the state of Washington, it'll take over 20 years to draw a quality elk tag
Yep.
in certain units. And it's like, okay, I'll get it once in my life. Like, this is my big shot.
Right.
Did you ever feel pressure on yourself from drawing a tag and be like, okay, I don't know if this type of hunt's ever going to happen again? And did you put pressure on yourself in that way?
Well, I think you wanted to maybe succeed a little bit more because you knew there wasn't going to be the next year. But I don't think it didn't push me to do something I otherwise wouldn't have done. Take a weird shot or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate enough in Colorado, and I was still a resident, to draw mountain goat and bighorn sheep, which
Wow.
Colorado is now changing. I think in 2028, a whole bunch of laws are changing there, but they're going to make those once in a lifetime. When I drew those, I mean, if you killed a sheep, you couldn't even apply for 5 years, and then you weren't even in the pool for 3 years after that. So and by the time you got enough points, you could argue, depending on how old you were, it might be a once in a lifetime deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you do draw those tags, you're like, boy, I really want to make it count. But it's still hunting, and it's still, Mother Nature going to do what she's going to do. And you just, I think you do put a little more effort into scouting and putting some time in. If you normally would do a 5 or 7 day hunt, maybe you're like, okay, I'm going to extend this to 10 days because I really want to give it everything that I can and do this tag justice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I agree. Um, Man, you know, hunting is so freaking awesome. I love to share. I talk about on this podcast. We spread the gospel of hunting, right? Like it is the best thing ever. You got to try it, and they're constantly sharing this mentorship as conservation. If you want hunting to last for generations to come, you got to invest in the hearts and lives of other people. With that being said, what type of experiences have you had where you've gotten to see the joy of like a newer hunter having their first success, or somebody having an experience that they're like, holy smokes, Willie, I didn't know that this was possible?
You know, I've got a 27-year-old daughter and a 24-year-old son, and I've seen a fair number with them, both big game and small game, whether it's ducks or turkeys or deer. Um, Took my daughter on an elk hunt in Colorado, and just we weren't successful, but to watch her just experience my biggest passion with me, elk bugling and chasing cows and doing that type of thing. And then non-family. It's been more limited, to be honest, because I haven't made it a point to just take a bunch of people out there that are new, but I've done it a handful of times, and it is amazingly rewarding to see the look and the excitement when I watched this one kid, shoot a limit of greenheads in Nebraska, and he'd never seen hunting like that, and just to watch him with his dad take them on that hunt was fantastic. Another one, it was a later onset hunter. It was a friend of a friend, and we were at a party one like Friday night. So I'm going to go hunting tomorrow, duck hunting, and his whole experience was jump shooting, ducks on a pond or on a slough. I said, no, that's fine, but that's not the way we do it. I want to call them in and have their feet down and decoy them in. And he's like, all right. I didn't think he was going to show the next morning, and he did. And afterwards, he's like, that beats the hell out of jump shooting any day. I mean, he's just so, just being able to, whether it's a new hunter who has never hunted before or somebody who hasn't hunted your style before and showing them how it can be, you know, not casting judgment, but in a way that I enjoy it more because of the calling and getting him in close, and everything else is just the way I do it. He never experienced that, so that was pretty cool.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, talking about one of the experiences I've never had is I've never called a turkey into me in the springtime. That is, I've killed a couple turkeys, but they've always been fall birds. I've
Yeah.
never had that thunder coming in my lap. People are always like, dude, it's the best. It's addicting. And once there's straight up turkey nuts, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
they live for the turkey woods. You usually go on a pretty epic turkey hunt every spring. Wh- what advice do you have for the people who are listening to this podcast that are like, okay, this is the year I'm going to go kill my very first turkey? What are some of the strategies that you use?
Oh, well, I think the hunt you're talking about is the Missouri Breaks hunt that a big group of us do in eastern Montana, which may or may not happen this year, just scheduling and everything else. But some of it's, you got to know where you're hunting and how the birds act. So, you know, traditionally you roost a bird, or you try to, so you get in there early in the next morning within their circle, where they might pitch down, and you call once they hit down. You call before they are, pitching out of the tree, hopefully coming to pitch down close to you, see your decoys and come in right away. Those birds in eastern Montana are so nomadic, and yeah, they roost. I mean, they all roost in trees, but they're constantly moving. There aren't food plots in the wood, big woods and stuff like that they're coming to. So you're just out there constantly moving. Almost, it's much more like an elk hunt where you're yelping, hopefully going to get a gobble, and then you go after that gobble.
Mm.
Um, and then sometimes they'll shut up, and sometimes sometimes you get one coming in, but it's a not your traditional turkey hunt. And I love turkey hunting. I mean, you talk again, hunters, right? We're so polarizing. We all love to hunt. I know people who say, you know what, the worst thing that can happen when you go turkey hunting, and you're like, what? It's like, you get one. They hate turkey hunting. They're like, I don't know, I'd rather re-roof my house or do something like that than go turkey hunting. I look at it as a poor man's elk hunt. I mean, if they could smell, they'd be almost unkillable.
Uh-huh.
The toms are aggressive. They're chasing other ones off. They're trying to get hens. You can call them in. They're vocal like an elk's bugling. I think it's freaking amazing. I look forward to it every spring.
That's awesome. That is awesome. We got a comment that showed up, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Is C Sierra 209? I know a lot of people in Montana don't like Californians. As a resident of California, I was very thankful to hunt in Montana a couple years ago. I appreciate my opportunity and look forward to going back. Yeah, it's these trips, it's not just a hunt. It's an adventure, right? Like you're
Right.
setting off into the unknown. You're going to a place that other than digitally scouting, you've probably never laid eyes on before, right? Maybe you made some phone calls, maybe you have some connections that have some insider information, but
Right.
but at the end of the day, it's like the ultimate adventure of going into the unknown. Um, and that is something that's often forgot. Like, how much money, time, and effort does it take for somebody to go from one state to another to go hunt an animal and hopefully find success by notching a tag and bringing meat home? And if not, at least hopefully they have a great encounter with locals or other hunters or, you know, the people. And just, it's interesting to see that comment. I'm glad he had a great time. He looks forward to going back.
Yeah, I hope, I guess, I don't know if it's a male or female, but whoever, I hope they had a good experience. I hope people treated them well. And yeah, I agree. I mean, shoot, I lived in Colorado for almost, well, my whole life, really, until 2018. And, there was the Californication of Colorado for years and years. And it's unfortunate because we just paint everybody with a broad stroke. Oh, you're from California. And immediately there's this negative, but there's a lot of great people from California. And I think it's just how you, as a Californian, would come here and react. And I would hope that Montanans and or Coloradoans would treat you with respect until they get to know you. Because where you're from doesn't define who you are. It can, but it's how you act and react and what your personality is. It's not so much where you're from, but we paint them with a broad brush for sure.
Yeah.
So I hope that they had a good experience, and it sounds like they did, and hopefully they'll come back.
Yep. Yep. I love that.
Yeah.
When it comes to preparing for a hunt, you're a big fitness guy. I see, saw you last year. You're fit. You take health very seriously. I remember all the way back to when I was a senior in high school, many moons ago. Uh, I'd work out because I was an athlete. And then I ended up playing college football. And I remember asking a teammate in high school who wasn't going to continue playing football, "Hey, are you gonna continue working out?" Like, I only thought working out was meant for sports. Like, it
Right.
wasn't something
Right.
that, so this idea of that we're athletes on the mountain, like to be in the best shape possible, to be at the top of our game, to accomplish what we want to do and be able to do it year after year. What what are you following or doing to maintain a peak level of fitness and mental sharpness and all that?
Well, number one, I do it year round. I don't, fall off the track and start in July, knowing that hunting's season's right around the corner. First of all, I never knew if there might be an opportunity in the spring to do something, not like, a huge backpack hunt or something like that, but, something that might take some physical capabilities. Went to Argentina once for red stag, and that's a spring because it's equivalent to our fall. If I stopped working out after elk season, or let's just say whitetail season, and an opportunity came up to go do a late season cow elk hunt, or just something, I didn't want to feel like I had, put 20 pounds on and lost the ability to hike. So number one, do it year round. Number two, if somebody's thinking of doing it, you don't need to immediately go to join a CrossFit gym or do something really high impact, do something like Mountain Tough Fitness and feel intimidated. I've said, first of all, start walking. If you walk your dog, go a little further, put a backpack on. Rucking is amazing. Just a weighted pack. It helps your core. It helps your leg muscles, just adding a little bit of stress and getting you prepared for it. But for me, I do a lot of functional fitness. I've done CrossFit. I've kind of gotten away from that, but a gym I've been going to for 4 years now. It's a programming thing every 4 weeks, and each week builds up. Week one builds to week two, builds to week three, and a deload in week four, and then they start a whole new program. And I love it. It's get your heart rate up, but it's also building your muscles. It's resistance training. It's the whole thing. And And to your point, it's hopefully so I can do this until I hope I got another 20, 25 years. I mean, I told you how old I was. So if you've forgotten or if nobody knows, then that's too bad. But do the math. I love this so much. I want to be able to do it and do it well and not just sit in a tree stand, which I love, but I want to be chasing elk
Mm.
for, again, good friend. And I'm sure you know him, Dan State. He's built his whole business model, Elk Shape, around, um, elk hunting is his biggest passion. So it's faith, his family, his fitness, his finance, everything is built around elk hunting. And I do the same, but fitness for me, that's, I'm 10 years older than Dan is, a little more than that. So it's just always been important to me, and it does keep your mind sharp. I think keeping dedication, there's a, helps your mental acuity. Just keeping consistent
Yeah.
and the dedication. So it's been important to me. And, I think, that little health scare I had 3 years ago, that was a little bit of an eye opener, and never thought I would have something like that because of how I stayed in shape. But I think because of the shape I was in, it helped me not have something more severe. So that's a lot of reason why I do it. I just want to be able to provide, certainly for my family, but also just do it because I love doing it, and I want to do it as long as I can. I don't want somebody to have to haul me up the hill or drive me up there and say, "You just sit here. We're gonna go do our thing, and we'll catch you on the backside." So,
Yep. Yep. All right, I'm going to shift gears here, and this is more for the people who have families or are thinking about getting into having families. You
yep.
being somebody who's lived outdoor lifestyle, who's created TV show, media, all this stuff, how do you maintain a good marriage? How do you maintain being a good father through it? And is that I you know, that's not easy to talk about because there's struggles. My wife, and to full disclosure, like there's been multiple conversations where I told my wife is like, I will walk away from hunting because I choose you, and I'm always going to be choosing you first and foremost. You and the kids are always going to come first, and because it's not an or. I don't live an or life. It's not this or that. It's this and that.
Right.
And as a man, I need this. Like I need this. Like I don't even know what to compare it to. I don't feel like I am truly my best version of myself if I'm not getting out in nature, if I'm not getting out into the wild and living some sort of adventurous life. The day-to-day monotony just wears me down. So, marriage, father, family life. What do you do, or what struggles did you end up facing and to overcome and make sure that you maintain?
Well, I think, I mean, if I went early on, um, I'll back up and say, first of all, my wife, I'm much like you, and my wife knows how important it is for me to get in the woods, not just because I enjoy hunting, but it's part of my DNA. And if I'm not out there, she can tell I'm starting to get stir crazy and
Yep.
maybe being a little short and everything. And she's like, "You need to go spend a weekend in the woods." So she knows and appreciates that, and I come back being a better husband.
Right.
Some of it's just you got your fix, and now I got my fix. Now I'm going to have the focus on you, but also, you've had time, even if it's with buddies, you still spend some alone time, even if it's just before, falling asleep or whatever. You reflect on some things, and you know she always says, "You never think about me when you're hunting." I'm like, "Well, actually I do a lot." Sometimes it's a long road trip, sometimes it's laying, in bed going to sleep, or just sitting on a mountainside. So, but early on, I mean, it was tough before she realized how important it was for me and felt like it was a or sort of thing. And I'm like, "No, no, no, it's not that at all. I'm going to try to do it all." And obviously, you can't hunt when the season's not going on, so there are some timeliness issues that you need to take advantage of
Yeah.
when it's in season. And so, there were some struggles, and there were some, times when I didn't go because it wasn't right to do, and maybe she felt bad, but kids took precedence, or she did, or the family did. So, all of that to say, a lot of it's compromise. I'm not going to get all of it, nor is she going to get all of it, but we find a way to compromise, and we've been married 32 years now. So it's work, not without struggles and not without work.
Right.
Marriage is work. Being a father is work.
Yeah.
But like anything, worth having, it takes work and effort, but it makes the reward that much better.
Right.
So, there've been times now when I started the hunting show knowing it was going to be more commitment. I was fortunate that, again, my kids were 10 and 13. So if they were, 3 and 7, 3 and 6, it might have been a far different deal, just, needier. But I missed a few things. But the flip side is, because my corporate life was done and that's what I was doing, I was around a lot more when I wasn't hunting. I didn't have a 9 to 5 punch in the clock sort of thing. So
Right.
when we had serious conversations about it. I mean, we really did. And I said, anytime it's not working, we'll talk about it, and you guys come first. And I'll deviate a little bit. Our spouses, they say behind every strong man is a stronger woman. And she's awesome. She's pretty intuitive. I'd been on the first hunt or two filming, and we were unsuccessful on an elk hunt, and we're sitting there. I remember it was on her patio in Colorado, and she said, you have this innate need to be outside and hunt. And she said, now you've taken on this venture to do this hunting show. If it changes, and you asked about pressure and need to do things differently, she said, if it changes and you feel the pressure and it makes you not enjoy it because of that pressure, quit. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
You love it too much. And that stuck with me even to this day. And I'm just doing, a few filmed hunts here and there for some short films and whatever. But, I always think about that to say, if it ever got to where the pressure was there, or feeling I wasn't successful, or trying to push the envelope a little bit, that wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. I'm going to move right here so you can see this picture of this elk. That was my very first time archery elk hunting, and I shot a beautiful bull in the state of Washington. And
Very nice.
right before that trip, my wife, we experienced a miscarriage.
Ooh.
And that was devastating to my wife's mental state of mind and in our relationship, because it doesn't just affect the woman, the dynamic of everything.
Sure.
And that was a really interesting time, to the point where I had this hunt that was scheduled long time in advance. There's a lot of energy going into it, effort, money. Had a buddy flying out from North Dakota to come join me. Like it was a big deal. And then this miscarriage happens, and I was like, okay, I really don't need to go on this hunt. Like I need to be with my wife. But at the end of the day, and this is a lesson learned, is if we don't communicate, then it's all gonna fall apart, right?
Sure.
We need to make sure we're communicating with our spouses, communicating with our loved ones, our network. And turned out that there's only so much support that I could give my wife without her also needing to just have some alone time and deal with where she was. And so she gave me the blessing to go on that hunt. And I almost feel like that was one of these like reward type moments of like, hey, I'm going to go hunt, and I'm doing this for the baby we lost. And I told her, "You shot this elk. I haven't done it yet. My wife's not really into this type of jewelry, but I was like, man, I'm gonna make some elk ivory, like
Yep.
something to like memorialize this one that we lost in our family."
Sure.
Um, that was a really interesting dynamic, and I can only imagine that if you hunt long enough, just like you're probably going to wound an animal at some point, you're probably going to experience a dynamic where family issue arises, and you have to address it as a leader of your household.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, actually, I made an episode. It was a duck hunt. My dad and I were supposed to go on with a good colleague of his and his son, who I also knew, going to go hunt ducks down in Texas. And same deal, had all the planning and a videographer and the whole 9 yards. And my wife developed, she had to have surgery, and it fortunately turned out not to be cancerous. But at the time, we didn't know that. And I canceled everything and said, Dad, you can go and do all that. And I think we titled it "Life Gets in the Way." I mean, sometimes it happens. And that was something I needed to be there for, and would have done it for an archery elk hunt too, just so you know. I mean, that's just how important it is. But to answer your question, I think it's compromise, and I think it's communication. And if you don't have those things, I'm not gonna say it's not gonna last, but it's just a harder deal to get through.
Yeah.
have it last time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, I'm not perfect, like you said. I mean, we've had our struggles and we've had arguments, and I hate to say fights, but we've always tried to say we're not going to go to bed angry at each other and try to resolve it best we can beforehand. And maybe sometimes that's an agree to disagree sort of thing, but you're not going to go to bed angry. And it's worked for us. I have no marital advice, anything like that, other than communication and compromise.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I appreciate the honesty, the authenticity. See, it all ties back. Just being real.
It's You get what you get with me, man. That's what it is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, brother, what do you have on the horizon for this coming spring, fall? Any adventures that you're really looking forward to?
I'm actually heading to Kansas next week for turkey. And other than that, for spring, I don't have much. I'm not a huge bear hunter. It's huge here in Montana. We didn't have a spring bear hunt in Colorado. The old greenies, not by Colorado license plate, but the other greenies, they outlawed that spring bear hunt back in, like, I lose track. I was young, late 80s, early 90s. But I just have never gotten into it. I've hunted bears and I enjoy it. But if Matzinger calls me and says, "Hey, you want to go bear hunting for a day or a weekend?" I'll do it. But I don't make a point myself. So until August for archery pronghorn and then archery elk, and I will go to New Mexico this year. I passed last year, and then whitetail. So some of it I'm still waiting on draw results and do that type of thing. But as I think, as you know, I'm also kind of a jack of all trades. I love golf, so it's starting to get nice. So hopefully, start swinging a club. I love to fish, fly fish, and my wife and I love to camp. So this starting to get green grass and warmer weather, turkey a little bit, and then just see what the summer the summer and early fall holds.
Yeah, I love it.
What about you?
Man, brother, I am springtime is always a tough time for me to get hunting. Like and this is probably a part of the reason why I've never killed a spring turkey is my wife's birthday. We're getting out of winter. It's like time to get outside and spend some good quality family time outside. So I got an Idaho spring bear hunt that I'm really excited for. I'm going to be taking
Nice.
off Memorial Day or right after Memorial Day weekend and heading up there. But then the beautiful thing about living in the state of Texas is that something's open year round.
Right.
It's always hunting season down here, which,
Yeah.
by the way, you got to come experience sometime. Come. I like to call it a Texas safari, right? Like you got hogs, coyotes, bobcats, foxes, coons, like you got it all, and you can hunt them year round. It's beautiful.
And 24 hours a day with thermal, some of that. So I mean, you're burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, thermal hunting is the absolute best. A lot of people, buddy says it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Like,
Right.
like it doesn't get much better than that. You suffer the next day. You're just like, oh man, I'm so tired.
Oh, I know, but it's super fun, and I figure you can sleep when you're dead.
Yep, exactly, exactly. Yeah, Sam, he's throwing out the hog. He's like, oh yeah, brother, I gotta get up to Montana. I actually own a little bit of property up in Gallatin County, and not too far away from the Missouri. I'm gonna have to come up there and cast some flies with you sometime.
Hey, invitation, it's open. Just come on up here. That'd be super fun to do that.
I love it, brother. How can people connect with your content now that you are off the network? Where are you releasing a lot of your stuff at?
Well, it's on YouTube, but I'm trying to drive a lot of people to the website. And I think I mentioned to you, I just kind of worked with somebody to refresh a lot of it. So you can go get all 11 seasons, all the episodes on the website. I mean, it'll take you to a link to YouTube, but instead of searching that out, just go to purehunting.com. Again, refreshed it because I want to keep the brand alive, and that's just a good landing point for it. All the short films, we broke it up into sort of two collections. Collection one has 7. I'm releasing collection 2 once a week on every Friday for the next 7 weeks. And then actually I've got kind of almost, I think I gathered all of them. I'm not sure, but podcasts that I've been on in the past. And once this is live, I'll put the link up there just so people can kind of see some, stuff and maybe get to know me a little better and just, kind of follow along and hear some stories. So purehunting.com is the best. Of course, Instagram, purehunting_official. Somebody got Pure Hunting and I reached out to him. Never was able to get it, but And then, Willi Schmidt on, it seems like Facebook isn't used a whole lot. And I do have Pure Hunting on Facebook as well. So kind of anything pure hunting related, but purehunting.com would be the best landing page.
Love it. Love it, brother. Man, Willie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, your insight, your authenticity, and just being a wonderful human being and a positive contributor to society and to the hunting community. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure to go like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, rating, review. All that stuff helps spread the mission of mentorship as conservation. For those of you who are on the Instagram Live, we're going to stay along and stay on here for just a little bit longer. For those of you on the listening to the podcast, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. The number one thing you always got to remember is that you're an ambassador for hunting wherever you go. And that if you want to see something change, you got to be the change. You got to be the change you want to see in the world. For Johnny Mack and Willi Schmidt of Pure Hunting, be blessed, freedom on. Thank you so much for listening. Stay soulful, everybody. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating as it helps us share our mission of mentorship as conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure.